Welcome, friends. You're watching The Tranquilizing Historian. I'm so glad you're here. Before we begin today's quiet journey through the past, I invite you to take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who enjoys calm storytelling, and subscribe to the channel so you can join me again for future historical explorations. I'd also love to know, what's your favourite part of history that you'd like to see covered next? And where in the world are you watching or listening from? Drop a comment below. I truly enjoy reading where everyone is tuning in from. Now, let's dim the lights, take a deep breath and step softly into history. The year is uncertain, perhaps the 12th century, perhaps the 14th, but the place is known. A modest town of stone and timber, tucked behind a ring of ancient walls. A place like many others, unmarked on most maps, but filled with lives. This is where we begin. The rooftops are cold with dew. The first light of morning creeps over the hills, soft and slow. The town stirs, and not all at once, but gently. A rooster calls from behind a slatted wooden gate. A chimney exhales a thread of smoke. Somewhere a child coughs, then settles back under a woven blanket. There are no bells, no alarms, just the rhythm of waking, and the scent of damp earth. The blacksmith is first to rise. He pours water into a shallow bowl, splashes his face, and stretches his arms with a low groan. His tunic smells of soot and sweat. His boots are patched, his hands always sore. The coals from yesterday are still warm. He fans them gently, and the flames return, like an old friend. Outside, the baker is already shaping dough. She hums a prayer under her breath. Her fingers move without thinking. Flour, water, ash, fold, press, fold again. She was born in this town. She will likely die here, but for now she bakes. By mid-morning, the square begins to fill. Cobblestones echo with footsteps. Baskets creak with weight. The merchants lay out their goods on cloth-covered stalls. There are roots and onions and a precious bundle of dried fish brought from the coast last week. A woman sells herbs, fennel, rue, thyme. Bundles wrapped in twine. A boy runs past with a jug of milk. He slips, but does not fall. His mother does not look up. She is haggling over a bolt of undyed wool. The chapel bell rings, low and cracked, but familiar. The friar walks slowly through the square. His robes are patched. His face is weathered. A small bell tied to his belt chimes with each step. He blesses no one, but everyone nods. Faith lives here, quietly. It hides in corners. It rests in silence. It speaks in the hush between words. Life in this town is not fast, nor is it easy, but it is known. A woman spins flax beside the door. A child mends a fishing net with a bent needle. A dog naps in the sun, one eye half open. A young man carries firewood, past the apothecary's door. He drops a piece, curses softly. No one hears him. The carpenter's hammer sounds slowly from the shop. A single nail, driven into oak, one tap at a time. Inside a home near the gate, a mother is boiling lentils. The pot hangs over a low fire. The room is warm. Her youngest son is playing with a wooden horse. The toy is missing a leg, but he does not seem to mind. His sister is asleep on a mat in the corner. Her breathing is steady. Her hair smells of ash and rosemary. The floor is swept clean. The shelves hold no silver, but everything is in its place. By early afternoon, the sun sits high. Crows circle over the grain fields beyond the wall. A distant breeze carries the scent of manure, baked bread and wood smoke. The gate guards are resting in the shade. One smokes a pipe, the other hums a tune. Their spears lean against the wall. Dust clings to their boots. They are not worried. They are not alert. They have stood watch for years and little has ever come of it. The road beyond the gate is empty, as it has been all season. Back in the square, the stalls begin to close. The shadows stretch longer. The merchants pack their cloth. Bread that did not sell is traded or given away. A beggar receives a bruised pear and offers a blessing in return. Children are called home. Laundry is pulled from the line. The smith extinguishes his forge. The day settles. The town exhales. Dinner is not a feast, it is a bowl of beans, a slice of rye bread, a bit of salted pork if there is any left. There is no wine tonight. The cask is nearly dry, but there is warmth and quiet. The family eats together, cross-legged around the fire. They do not speak much, not from tension, but from comfort. There is nothing new to say, and that is a kind of peace. Later, the chapel bell rings again. A low toll, slow and heavy. The friar walks once more through the lanes. He carries a small lantern. The light flickers on the walls. His voice murmurs a final prayer. Behind him, doors are closed. Lamps are dimmed. The town folds itself into sleep. Outside the walls, the fields rest under starlight. The harvest is mostly in. The sheep are penned. The scarecrows tilt in silence. Beyond the hills, the world stirs. A war, perhaps. A grievance between lords. A hunger for land. A claim of inheritance. None of it matters here. Not yet. Here the people sleep, trusting the walls, trusting the gate, trusting that tomorrow will come, as today did. But even now, even in this hour, a rider may be crossing the river. A scout may be watching the torchlight. From the edge of the trees, a message may be on its way, a warning or an ultimatum. But the people do not know, not yet. They rest, in beds of straw beneath woolen blankets, in the arms of those they love. They dream of ordinary things, a better harvest, a child's first tooth, the sound of rain, and the walls stand, quiet and unbroken, for now. It begins, as many things in a quiet medieval town often do, with something small, a whisper, a glance, an unspoken concern exchanged between two people in the shadow of the market square. The season is changing. The leaves have begun to yellow, and the mornings come with a chill that seeps through wool. Life goes on as it always has. Bread is baked before dawn, water drawn from the well, goats led out to graze and brought home again by dusk. The chapel bell rings at the appointed hours, and the town's heartbeat continues its slow, familiar rhythm. And yet, something shifts. At first, it's no more than a rumour carried by a travelling merchant who arrives late one evening, cloak torn, hoarse, foaming and anxious. He has little to sell and less to say. He drinks water from the trough, accepts a crust of bread, and leaves again before dawn. But someone overheard him speaking to the steward, voice low, expression grim. He said the village by the river is gone, silent, emptied. No smoke from chimneys, no sounds from the animals. Just silence and signs of struggle. He wouldn't stay long enough to explain more. The next few days carry the rumour on the wind. It spreads between hands passing loaves of bread, between glances exchanged over market stalls, between guards at the gate who now shift their spears a little more tightly in their grip. Most shrug it off. Bad harvests, maybe. A plague. These things happen. But even as they dismiss the talk, they move a little more quickly. The blacksmith sharpens old tools that haven't seen use in years. The baker adds salt less generously. And a mother tells her child not to wander beyond the walls, though she cannot explain why. Then come the refugees, not merchants or messengers, but peasants. A family of 5, carrying what they can on their backs, arrive just after the gates open at dawn. Their faces are wind-burned, feet cracked and bleeding. They ask for water, a place to rest, and say little else. A boy clutches a broken wooden doll, one eye missing. The father offers thanks, but gives no story. The eldest daughter, perhaps 15, stares at the ground and speaks only once. To say they came from the southern fields and that there is nothing left there now. That night, they sleep in the barn behind the chapel, huddled together under a borrowed blanket. In the morning, more arrive. 2 men, 3 women, a babe wrapped in a cloak too thin for the season. They say their farm was burned, livestock scattered or stolen, fields salted. The attackers did not wear colours, no banners, no sigils, just men on horseback, hungry, armed and silent. One of the women has bruises that no one mentions. An older man, perhaps a shepherd, mutters the word "bannerless" under his breath. He says it once, then falls silent for good. Now the town listens. The word spreads with increasing weight. Bannerless, raiders, deserters, outlaws, men with no oath to any lord, no fealty, no reason to spare the weak. Men who live off of what they take and leave ashes behind. The steward assures the townsfolk there's nothing to fear, the walls are strong, the garrison is capable, but no one truly believes him, not even the steward himself. The market changes. The air grows taut with caution, no longer filled with chatter and the rustle of cloth. Now transactions are quicker. Salt is more expensive. So is dried meat. So is anything that will keep over winter. The smith begins reforging sickles into crude blades. He doesn't charge for it, but he also doesn't talk much anymore. One of the gate guards now sleeps in his armour. Another hasn't smiled in days. Then comes the messenger. He arrives near dusk, riding a grey horse that looks half dead. His cloak bears the colours of a northern keep, faded red, almost brown with dried mud. He does not pause in the market. He does not speak to anyone but the steward and the priest. They take him inside the chapel, close the doors, and speak for over an hour. When he emerges, he doesn't even stay the night. He drinks from the trough, mounts his horse again, and disappears into the darkness without a word. That evening, the chapel bell rings twice. No one knows what it means. It is not the hour of prayer. It is not a funeral. Just two slow, heavy tolls. The next day, no one mentions it aloud, but everyone remembers. From then on, the fear grows into something more solid, not spoken in full, but present in every gesture. The market is quieter still. Children are kept close. A boy who once ran through the streets every afternoon now sits quietly beside his mother's stall, fingers playing with a piece of string. The guard towers are manned through the night. Torches are lit and maintained. No one has been attacked, and yet the sense of encroaching danger thickens like smoke. Then, one morning, a man disappears. Willem, the tanner, leaves his home to check his snares in the woods beyond the south wall. He does not return. At first, his neighbours assume he's stayed out longer than usual. But by nightfall, his cottage remains empty, hearth cold, door ajar. A few guards search the surrounding paths. They find nothing but a dropped satchel and one torn boot, half hidden in the brush near the edge of the tree line. No blood, no struggle, just absence. It might have been wolves, or a thief, but no one says it. The town draws a little tighter inward. From that day, the gates are kept closed except for essential travel. The steward calls another meeting in the chapel. The priest stands beside him, silent. No one else is allowed inside. The guards say it's a discussion of supplies, of reserves, of rationing, if it comes to that. By now, every household has already begun counting what's left, not openly, but in small private ways. How many sacks of grain remain? How much salt? How many candles? How long can we last if the worst happens? There is no formal declaration, but the change is felt. People begin preparing, each in their own way. A carpenter begins reinforcing his shutters. A seamstress starts stitching extra layers into cloaks. The tavern keeper waters down his ale, not out of greed, but to make it last. A boy is seen practicing with a sling in the alley behind the cooper's shop. He doesn't play anymore. He watches the walls. And then, one night, a fire is seen on the southern horizon. Not a torch, not a hearth, but a rising column of flame and smoke, bright and steady against the dark sky. It burns for hours. A farmhouse, perhaps, or an entire village. No one knows. No one goes to see. The next morning, ash drifts faintly into the town, and the birds are quiet. After that, there is no more doubt. Whatever comfort once existed is gone. The question is no longer if, but when. The air has changed. It carries the scent of distant fire and fear. People speak less, watch more. The chapel is fuller each evening, but no prayers are said aloud. They are whispered into calloused hands and tear-wet sleeves. A child asks her mother if the bad men are coming. The mother smiles, touches her daughter's cheek and says no. Says the gates are strong. Says the guards are brave. But later that night, after the child sleeps, the mother sits awake by the fire, unmoving, listening. And so the days pass, each one slower than the last. There are still tasks to do, bread to bake, water to draw, animals to feed. But every motion feels heavier. The town watches the horizon and waits. The people do not panic. Not yet. Panic comes later. For now, there is only silence. That and the knowledge that something is coming. Something unseen, but real. And somewhere beyond the trees, beyond the empty farms and fading roads, an army is moving. Slowly, steadily. It does not announce itself. It does not need to. It knows the town will hear it eventually, will feel it press against its walls, will understand the truth, that the walls are not as thick as they once believed. And so the gates remain closed. The lights inside grow dimmer, and the people wait, holding their breath, pretending the world beyond the gate does not exist. Not yet, not tonight, not until it must. It happens with little ceremony. One morning, the gates do not open. No trumpet call, no cry of alarm, just the slow turn of the iron mechanism. The heavy bar slid into place not for the night, but for good. The usual creak of the hinges remains silent. A few early risers stand nearby, puzzled, waiting with baskets in hand. Farmers ready to leave for their fields. A courier meant to deliver a message to a nearby parish. A woman with family in the next village. They wait, unsure if this is a delay or something more permanent. The guards at the gate offer no explanation, only silence and a downward glance. The truth arrives by mid-morning. The steward steps into the square, hands folded, robes brushed clean, his voice as measured as ever. He says it simply. The roads are no longer safe. The last travellers to pass through brought news of movement, riders along the southern trail, sightings of smoke beyond the woods. The decision was made with the safety of the town in mind. The gates will remain shut until the danger has passed. There is no cause for alarm, he says, just caution. But those gathered do not leave reassured. They exchange glances, then disperse slowly, baskets still full, thoughts heavier than before. That evening, no one sings. Even the dogs bark less. By the following morning, the transformation has begun. The town begins to feel smaller. It is not the size of the place that changes. The streets remain as narrow, the stone walls as old, the chapel bell as cracked. But something shifts in the air. There is a subtle contraction, an awareness that there is now only so far one can go. The gates are no longer passageways, they are barriers. The town is no longer open to the world, it is sealed. At first, people try to maintain their routines. Bread is still baked, buckets still drawn from the well. But the mood is different. Conversation feels muted, eyes flick to the horizon more often. Shopkeepers begin taking stock of their wares more carefully. A woman who once sold embroidered linens now barters for dried beans. The blacksmith works longer hours, but says less while doing so. He has begun melting down metal that once served decorative purpose, candlesticks, iron hinges, curtain rods. Anything that can become a weapon. Space becomes something new. With the gates closed and no one leaving, every corner of the town becomes occupied. People who once lived on the outskirts have come inside the walls, seeking protection. Farmhands sleep in barns. Extended families crowd into single homes. Privacy begins to vanish. A man who once had a room to himself now shares a mattress with two nephews. A woman gives birth in a cellar because the family above needed the bed for someone ill. The town begins to creak under its own weight. Wells are used more often. Fires burn longer. The air grows thicker. Waste accumulates faster than it can be buried or carried away. Flies multiply. Rats appear more boldly. Chickens are kept indoors, geese tied in corners. The stench of smoke, sweat, and unwashed cloth begins to blend into a single heavy perfume. The steward issues new orders. Food must be rationed. Bread portions are halved, no second helpings, no unnecessary cooking, no feeding stray animals. The meat from the butcher becomes scarce, then absent. The pigs are being saved, people say, for worse days to come. Water is measured too. The town's main well still runs, but two of the smaller ones begin to dry. Buckets are labelled by household. A boy who once played with a stick and hoop now guards the water line with a wooden club. He is 12. He does not smile. The chapel fills more often now, not just for services, but for shelter. It becomes a dormitory, a soup kitchen, a place to cry. People bring what they can, old blankets, lentils, onions. The priest does not speak of punishment or sin. He only offers blessings and holds hands. He walks through the square each evening, offering a prayer beneath his breath to anyone who asks. His face has grown pale. He does not sleep much. Tension builds in quiet ways. A man accuses his neighbour of stealing grain. A woman finds her laundry gone from the line. Two boys fight over a half-eaten apple. The steward urges calm. He posts more guards along the inner streets, men who barely know how to hold a spear. But their presence is enough to keep open conflict at bay. For now. Whispers begin to circulate. That someone saw movement near the walls at night. That a pig was found dead, throat slit, blood drained. That one of the guards heard a flute playing in the trees, a haunting tune, not of this town. These stories are not confirmed. They grow in the telling, but the people listen, and they believe. A new rule is announced, no open fires after nightfall. Light attracts attention, the steward says, so does noise. The town begins to darken earlier. Candlelight becomes a secret thing, hidden behind shutters. Conversations are held in hushed tones. The laughter that once spilled from the tavern is now only memory. The gatehouses are reinforced. Men carry sandbags, hammer iron plates into the wood. The doors groan under the effort, but they hold. Still, everyone knows, if an army comes, these walls will only delay, not deny. The town's defences were not built for war. They were meant to keep out wolves and bandits, not siege engines, not disciplined soldiers. The steward does not say this, but others do. A retired soldier speaks grimly to a small circle each evening in the tavern. He points to the weak spots, the low sections, the corner where the stone has cracked. He does not offer hope, only realism. People begin preparing in private, hiding food in floorboards, sewing coins into hems, sharpening kitchen knives. A woman carves a small cross into her doorframe each morning, a silent ritual to ward off what may come. A man lights a candle for his dead wife and asks her quietly to watch over him again. Some pray for deliverance, others for strength. A few pray only that it be quick. Children sense the change, though the adults try to shield them. Games stop, toys lie untouched. A little girl draws figures in the dust. Walls, towers, people inside, flames outside. She draws it again and again, then wipes it away before anyone can see. The sky shifts. Rain comes less often. The wind smells different, less of trees, more of ash. Birds fly higher, farther. One night the stars are hidden behind a strange yellow haze. The next morning, soot is found on the rooftops. No fire burned in town that night. Then, one morning, a farmer collapses in the square. He had been hiding food, bread and jerky, wrapped in a cloth under his cloak. Others had seen. When he would not share, they followed him. Words were exchanged, then blows. By the time the guards arrived, His head was bleeding, his cloak torn. The food was gone. The steward calls a town meeting, but few attend. They know what will be said. Order, patience, unity. But hunger makes men deaf. So does fear. Still, the town holds. No one has died of starvation yet. No invaders at the gate. But the pressure builds like steam. Each day feels tighter, the streets narrower, the silence louder. A mother finds mould growing in her grain sack. She weeps. A father sells his boots for a handful of lentils. A child coughs blood into his sleeve and hides it. The chapel bell still rings, but less often. Its tone is duller, as if even the metal is tired. And always, the gates remain shut. The great wooden doors, bound in rusting iron, stand like the back of some sleeping beast, unmoving, unknowable. The people look at them now with mixed feeling, once a comfort, now a prison. Each night more watch from the walls. They scan the hills, they squint into the trees. They wait. And always there is that dreadful silence. No army, no rider, no warning, only the narrowing of life, the drawing in, the slow suffocation of hope. And behind it all, the creeping knowledge that the siege has already begun, not with catapults or fire, but with fear. There is a strange rhythm to life during siege. At first, it is a disruption, loud, sudden, terrifying. But over time, even hardship can become routine. The gates are shut, the walls manned. Outside, the world waits. Inside, the town adapts. Not by choice, but by instinct. Day after day, the people adjust to a new kind of existence. One defined not by growth, but by endurance. It begins with space. There is not enough of it. With the influx of villagers and labourers from the surrounding countryside, the town now holds twice its usual number. Entire families share single rooms. Strangers sleep side by side, curled near hearths and under stairwells. The chapel has become a dormitory. The tavern, a soup kitchen. Every barn, cellar and storage loft has been filled with people and with silence. They sleep poorly. The nights are cold and crowded. There is no privacy, not for dressing, not for grieving, not for prayer. People avert their eyes, speak in whispers, and dream of wide fields and open skies. Dreams, however, do not last. The mornings are cold, always cold, and darker than they should be. Smoke from 100 fires hangs in the air like a second sky, turning the sun to a sickly orange disk by midday. The smell seeps into everything, the bread, the blankets, the hair. There is a schedule now, loose but observed. The steward has organised work crews to carry out essential tasks, fetching water, tending fires, collecting waste. But with no wood coming in from outside, firewood is precious. People burn anything they can, broken furniture, old tools, scraps of cloth. The carpenters have dismantled unused carts, benches from the chapel, even parts of the town stockade. Everything becomes fuel, and still it is not enough. Water is fetched from the main well only twice per household per day. Each family is issued 2 buckets marked with wax seals. The guards watch the well closely. There have been arguments. Once, a fight. An older man shoved a boy to the ground for spilling a cupful. The man was beaten with fists and boot heels. No one remembers who started it, only that water was lost, and that is a crime of its own. Food is worse. Rations are strict. A bowl of thin gruel in the morning, a piece of bread at dusk. If a family has something stashed, beans, dried apples, smoked meat, they keep it hidden. Meals are eaten quickly, quietly, with backs turned to others. Hunger makes people cruel in ways they never expected of themselves. A mother eats her share while her children sleep. A man trades his wedding ring for a single onion. A teenage girl hoards acorns, crushed and boiled into bitter paste. They are not nourishing, but they fill the mouth. That is enough. The steward's storehouse is locked, but everyone knows it won't last. Salted pork, hardtack, barley, flour, measured and guarded. But even careful measurement does not make the food multiply. Some whisper that the steward himself eats better than the rest, that the priest is saving wine for himself, that the guards are hoarding eggs. These are only rumours. But in siege, rumours become belief. Belief becomes blame. Disease follows hunger, as it always does. At first it is coughing, harmless. Then comes fever, the sweating, the shakes. The priest calls it the inward flame, an old name, older than he is. It spreads fast in tight quarters. A child dies in his sleep, mouth open, eyes glassy. Then another. An old woman too frail to walk is found dead beside her son's cot. The bodies are buried quickly, without ceremony, in a shallow pit outside the wall. A new rule follows. If you show signs, you do not enter the chapel. If your fever rises, you are moved to the apothecary's cellar. No one comes out from there. Hope shrinks. Not all at once, but piece by piece. A man sings one morning while stoking the fire. The next day, he says nothing at all. A child asks when they'll see a horse again. The mother says soon. The next day, she stops answering. A boy who used to fish in the river carves a tiny boat from a scrap of wood and sets it adrift in a puddle. It capsizes immediately. He does not try again. Time loses meaning. The days blend into one another. The chapel bell still rings, but not with regularity, only when something must be announced, a death, a ration change, a fire, an arrival. The bell has become a sound of dread. People freeze when they hear it, then resume moving with heavy shoulders and lowered eyes. No one hurries anymore. There is nowhere to hurry to. The air is stale. There is no fresh breeze, no scent of grass or pine. The sky is rarely blue. Smoke clouds it. Sometimes ash falls like snow. On those days, the children stay inside, not from fear of the air, they do not understand that, but from the sadness in their parents' faces. The ash is a reminder that something burns beyond the walls, that someone is burning it. And yet, through it all, life persists in its own way. A woman washes her hair with rainwater caught in a basin. An old man reads aloud from a book with missing pages. Two brothers play a game of counting stones. A midwife delivers twins, both living, though one does not cry until morning. These small moments are not victories, but they are not defeats either. They are the quiet resistance of ordinary people, a refusal to surrender their humanity. There are moments of anger too, of despair. A man shouts at the guard for denying him extra bread. A woman slaps her sister for spilling soup. A teenager punches a wall until his knuckles bleed, then lies on the floor and weeps without sound. These outbursts do not shock anyone. They are understood, even expected. No one punishes them. They pass like storms, and then the silence returns. The steward begins making rounds each morning, flanked by two guards. He speaks to the heads of households, checks the stores, inspects the wells. His face is thin now, his hair greyer. He walks with a limp that wasn't there before. No one asks about it. His voice is steady but lower than it once was. Some say he has not slept in days. Others say he prays every night by the gate, asking for mercy. If so, no one sees it. The priest, once a source of comfort, is quieter now. His prayers are shorter. He no longer preaches about God's plan. He speaks only of patience, of compassion, of staying still. He sits in the back of the chapel most days, watching the door, holding a worn rosary between pale fingers. His eyes are red. He drinks the communion wine, though no one mentions it. At night, people lie awake and listen, not to sounds of attack, for those have not come, but to coughing, footsteps, sobs, murmured prayers. Some listen to the silence itself, a deep, aching silence that feels heavier than noise, a silence that says, the world beyond the walls has changed, and perhaps it is no longer coming back. One woman keeps a journal. She writes by candlelight, careful to use as little wax as possible. She writes of each day, not the facts, but the feeling of them, the weight of hunger, the dread of dusk, the strange peace that comes with knowing there is no decision left to make. She does not know if anyone will ever read it, but writing it makes her feel more alive. Children continue to grow. Their faces become leaner, but their eyes sharper. They learn things no child should have to learn: how to strip a rat, how to drink water slowly so it lasts, how to walk without making noise, how to be still when someone dies beside you. Some stop speaking altogether, others ask questions with no answers. Why did they come? When will they leave? Why didn't we run? There are no answers, only the steady beating of time, like a drum buried deep beneath the earth. The town has become its own world, a sealed chamber of survival, a cocoon of grief. Beyond the gates, something waits, patient, unrelenting. But inside, the people endure. They do not hope. Hope is a luxury. But they move. They breathe. They carry water. They share a crust of bread. They close the eyes of the dead. They hold a child close, just long enough for sleep to come. And they survive. For now, there are many forms of suffering in a siege, but none so universal, so intimate, so persistent as hunger. It begins quietly. Before it becomes agony, before it becomes madness, it enters the body as a whisper. A dull ache in the belly, a lightness in the head, a weakness in the limbs that can be mistaken for fatigue. For the first few days it is manageable. The gruel is thin, but warm. The bread is coarse, but filling. The salt is stretched. The root vegetables, though soft and sprouting, still serve their purpose. But hunger is patient. It does not demand. It waits. It takes its time. And in time it takes everything. The first to feel it deeply are the children. They are growing, their bodies demanding fuel that no longer exists. They cry less now, not more. They become quiet. They learn to chew slowly, to savour crumbs as if they were banquets. Their limbs become thin, their faces gaunt. Eyes that once held light begin to hollow. Some stop playing entirely. Others sit beside their mothers and press their hands to their stomachs in silence. Adults are slower to admit it. They have pride, and with pride, denial. A father will give his portion to his wife, saying he ate already. A grandmother will pass her bread to her grandson, pretending she is not hungry. Lies told with love. But love does not fill the belly. And even the kindest lie cannot generate calories from ash. Teeth become loose. Gums bleed. Fingernails crack and splinter. Muscles ache from the effort of standing. Skin grows pale, then yellowed. Hair becomes brittle. The body begins to consume itself, starting with fat, then muscle, then, eventually, the very organs that keep it alive. People grow slower. They rise later, if at all. Work becomes impossible. Firewood is left uncollected. Wells untended. The steward's assignments dwindle. There is no strength to enforce them. The guards remain at their posts, but they lean more now, rest more often, speak less. If the enemy came today, few would be able to lift a sword. The food stores are nearly empty. What remains is measured in handfuls. A single pot of dried lentils, a few shriveled onions, a sack of barley infested with weevils. People eat it anyway. Weevils are protein. Desperation turns inventive. Leather is boiled, belts, boots, scraps of harness. It becomes a gluey, tasteless soup, bitter and difficult to digest. Curtains are shredded and steeped. Grass is plucked from cracks in the stone and chewed until it becomes pulp. Some dig in the soil for worms, for beetles, for anything that moves. The town's cats vanish, one by one. So do the rats, though they are harder to catch. A man is seen eating a crow he managed to trap with a snare of shoelaces. He does not remove the feathers. He does not care. Hunger does not care. Then come the hard choices. A woman with a newborn can no longer produce milk. She has not eaten in 3 days. The child's cries are hoarse. She pleads with the apothecary, with the priest, with anyone. They give her broth made from bones and onion skin. The child drinks. It survives the night. But only one more. A boy finds his brother hiding a turnip under his mattress. They fight, they scream. When the turnip is torn in two, both cry. Not from guilt, but because it is smaller than they hoped. A dog appears in the square one morning. No one knows where it came from. It looks healthy. Its coat shines. Within hours, it is gone. Nothing remains but blood on the stones and a collar hanging from a nail behind the tavern. No one speaks of it. The priest continues to pray, but he is thinner now. His robes hang loose on his shoulders. His hands tremble as he lights candles. His words are quieter, less confident. He no longer speaks of God's mercy, only of endurance, of patience, of the promise that all suffering ends. Eventually, some turn to superstition, salt lines drawn across thresholds, old prayers spoken in forgotten tongues. A woman places twigs in the shape of a wheel under her son's pillow. A man wears his wife's dress inside out, convinced it will ward off death. Desperation needs no reason. Children die first, then the old, then the sick. These are expected losses. Whispers speak of them as gentle departures, as though death were a kindness, a release. A father buries his daughter in the garden behind the tannery. The ground is hard. He digs with a broken plate. He wraps her in his shirt. He does not weep. He does not pray. He finishes the grave, places a stone, and walks away. He eats nothing that night. One family is found dead in their home, all five, seated around the hearth, a bowl of ash in the centre. No one knows what they ate, or if they ate at all. The door is sealed, the house is avoided. The steward calls a meeting. Fewer attend. He speaks of dignity, of perseverance. He begs them to resist cruelty, to keep faith. His voice cracks. He cannot finish his speech. The guards help him down from the steps. Then one morning something changes. A man is seen eating meat, not crow, not rat, not dog. Meat. There are no animals left in the town. He is confronted, denies nothing, says only, he was already dead, refuses to name who, refuses to say how. The priest demands the body be exhumed. The grave behind the cooper's shop is opened. There is nothing in it. No bones, no clothes, just dirt. The man is taken away, not punished. No one has the strength. He is locked in a shed, given water, not food. A day later, he is gone. No one knows who let him out. No one asks. And still, the hunger continues. Those who survive do so by force of will, by sharing, by bartering scraps of food for stories, for songs, for prayers. A woman trades her last crust for an hour of company. A man gives his final potato to the girl who tends the fire, not out of kindness, but because he cannot bear to eat alone again. The town becomes a husk, a ghost of what it was. The walls still stand, the chapel still leans, but the people inside are shadows, moving slowly, speaking softly, sleeping often. There are no more chores, no more school, no more sermons, only waiting. The hunger has taken names, faces, futures, and still it is not satisfied. There comes a point, after hunger has hollowed the bones and grief has numbed the heart, when fear no longer arrives as noise, but as silence. It is not the same silence as before the siege, not the quiet of early morning or the hush of prayer, not the silence of snowfall or of two lovers beneath blankets sharing words with their eyes alone. This silence is deeper, emptier. It is a silence made from absence, from all that has left. The streets are no longer crowded. They were never wide, never bustling like the cities the merchants used to describe, but they once held movement, footsteps, voices, clatter. Now they hold wind and dust. A broken cartwheel lies abandoned near the chapel steps. A child's doll, missing its head, sits beside a dry water basin. A scarf flutters from a shutter like a white flag, forgotten and ignored. No one gathers in the square. The market stalls still stand, warped from weather, cloth faded from smoke and sun. But they are empty. No trade, no barter, no laughter. The baker's stall, once the heartbeat of each morning, is now boarded shut. The tavern sign swings in the wind. Inside, the chairs are overturned, the hearth cold, the air stale. What's left of the town has drawn inward. Homes once full of clamour now shelter quiet. Families that once spilled onto doorsteps now remain behind bolted doors. Windows are shuttered, not just against the wind, but against the world. Inside, voices speak softly, if at all. There is little to say. Everyone knows the same truths. Everyone has seen the same losses. Each person grieves the same life that has gone, not just lives lost, but the way of living itself. The chapel still opens its doors each morning, but fewer come. The priest stands at the altar, eyes heavy, robes frayed. He reads from memory, the same prayers repeated so often now that they come without thought. His voice echoes in the stone nave, unanswered. The pews are nearly empty. Those who sit do so silently, heads bowed. There are no candles, no flowers, just the dull creak of old wood and the smell of dust and damp wool. Outside, the walls still stand. The guards are fewer. Some have fallen sick. Some have disappeared. Those who remain walk slowly. They lean more often. They look beyond the walls, not with vigilance, but with detachment. No one speaks of the enemy now. It is no longer a question of when they will come. It is only a matter of whether the town will still be breathing when they arrive. Each street feels wider, longer. The footsteps that once echoed now vanish into still air. A person walking alone down the main lane can hear every creak of leather, every rasp of their own breath. The wind whistles between buildings with a voice that sounds too much like crying. Sometimes that's what it is. The animals are gone. There are no birds nesting under the eaves, no cats brushing against ankles, no chickens scratching the dirt. The only life beyond the human is the flies, the rats, and the dogs that became meat and are now only memory. Some homes stand open, their occupants long gone, whether to sickness, to starvation, or to silence. No one reclaims them, no one searches them. There is no strength to clean, no desire to claim. A home with no life in it becomes less than a structure. It becomes a tomb. Children play no more. The few that remain speak rarely, if at all. They sit beside their parents, or beside other children, watching the world with expressions too old for their faces. One girl carries a spoon in her pocket, though she hasn't eaten in days. A boy hums a song with no words. He does not stop until he sleeps. Another ties a rope around a broken chair and drags it through the street, slowly, leaving a line in the dust. He says it's his brother. At night, the silence deepens. There is no music, no talk, no fire crackle. No dogs barking, no laughter from windows, no arguing between walls. The town sleeps in parts, and those who do not sleep sit by darkened windows, staring out, waiting. For what they do not know, perhaps for sound, perhaps for the end. Time has lost its rhythm. The days bleed together. Morning is noticed only because of light. Evening, only because the cold returns. The bell in the chapel is no longer rung. No one has the strength to pull the rope. The sound of that bell would seem foreign now, too full, too loud, too alive. Dreams have faded. Most don't recall them anymore. Sleep is less a rest than an escape, a dim floating in black water. When dreams do come, they are not hopeful. They are memories of bread, of song, of gardens in summer. And sometimes they are empty, white voids, open mouths, endless silence. A woman near the north wall keeps a book of names. She does not know why. Each time someone dies, she writes their name in charcoal. She writes it carefully, slowly, even when her hands tremble. There are many pages now. She has started writing on the back covers. She has begun adding sketches of their faces, not because she is an artist, but because she wants to remember, even if no one else does. The graveyard is full. New bodies are buried where the gardens used to be. No markers, just shallow pits and stones. No prayers are said. The priest no longer attends. There are too many. Grief has become an act of exhaustion. A few still resist, still try to impose meaning on the quiet. A boy organises stones in circles in the square, a ritual no one understands. A girl lights a candle at every corner of her home each night. A man sings to his wife, who no longer responds, lying motionless on the cot beside him. He sings the same lullaby each evening, not because he thinks she hears, but because it makes the silence bearable. Even the wind seems changed. It no longer refreshes. It carries no scent of grass or river, only ash, only the faint metallic scent of decay. It scrapes along the rooftops like a fingernail on slate. One night, a sound breaks through, a baby's cry, sharp, sudden, unmistakable. It cuts through the air like a knife. Then silence. People step from their homes, staring toward the source, but no one moves closer. The cry does not come again. By morning there is no sign, no explanation, no child. The enemy is still unseen, still distant, but it doesn't matter, the siege is complete. Not because the gates are broken, but because the will has eroded. The town has become a husk, not just of body, but of soul. And yet, some live, some endure, not for hope, not for purpose, simply because they have not yet stopped, because their hearts still beat, because their lungs still draw air, even when there is no joy in the breath. These survivors are quiet, watchful. Their faces are unreadable. They do not cry anymore. They do not ask for help. They tend the fire, even when it dies. They sweep the floor, even when it's already clean. They braid a child's hair, even if the child no longer speaks. There is a strength in them, a bleak, exhausted strength, the strength of the last light before it fades, the strength of those who have nothing left but remain. Because even silence, even this silence, is not truly empty. It is full of memory, of love unspoken, of lives lived, of everything that was and everything that might be again. If the gates ever open, if spring ever comes, if the silence is ever broken by something other than loss, there is no event, no announcement, no break in the sky. Just another morning. The same weak light filters through the smoke-dimmed clouds. The same cold air curls under doors. The same wind carries dust and ash along the streets, past the walls, over the graves. There is no sign that anything has changed, and yet the town still breathes, the silence remains, the hunger remains. The dead do not rise, and the gates do not open, and still people stir. This is not hope, it is not resistance. It is something older, something quieter. It is the muscle of the spirit, twitching even after the soul is worn thin. It is habit, ritual, the need to do something, anything, because stillness too long held begins to rot the mind. A woman rises from her blanket before the sun has touched the rooftops. Her joints creak, her body aches. She moves slowly, not from reluctance, but because her limbs will allow nothing else. She finds a pot. She pours water, not to drink, not yet. First, she washes her hands. The water is cold. Her hands are red by the time she finishes. But she dries them carefully. She braids her hair with shaking fingers. Then she rouses her son, still curled beneath a pile of rags. She tells him to rise. He does, without words. Together, they prepare the morning's meal, a crust of hard bread soaked in water until it can be chewed. The boy eats first. She watches. Then she takes her portion, smaller, and eats it slowly. Her stomach clenches with the effort, but she says nothing. The bread is the same as yesterday, the same as the day before. It is enough. because it must be. Elsewhere, a man sits outside his door. His eyes are closed, his lips move, but no sound escapes. He might be praying, or singing, or reciting poetry to himself, a fragment of something he once heard long ago, a memory kept alive through repetition. He places a pebble in his palm and rolls it between his fingers, a daily act, a way to mark time. Not far from him, a girl collects ash from beneath the hearth. She presses it into a bowl with water and shapes it into a crude paste. She smears it on the wall in lines and arcs, drawing patterns with her fingers. A spiral, a tree, a house. Her mother says nothing, just watches her, eyes hollow, hands still. The wall will be wiped clean tomorrow. The girl will draw again. In a corner of the chapel, 2 children play a quiet game. Stones and string. The rules known only to them. They do not smile, but their eyes are alert, and their hands move with purpose. The priest steps past them, mutters a blessing under his breath, and places a thin blanket over a man who has not moved in hours. The man is alive. His breath is shallow. The priest gives him a sip of broth and continues on. There is no feast, no gathering, but meals are shared. A woman gives half her onion to a neighbour with trembling hands. A boy trades a wooden button for a spoonful of broth. 2 friends share a single carrot, not sliced, not cooked, just passed back and forth between bites. Small kindnesses go unspoken. They are not gestures of virtue. They are survival. Because to give, even a little, makes one feel real again, human, tethered to something beyond this moment. A man who once painted icons sets up a small canvas in the window light. The paint is gone. So are his brushes. He uses soot mixed with water and a twig. He paints the same image over and over, a mother holding a child, looking past the viewer into something unseen. Each version is different, each one slightly more abstract than the last. When he finishes one, he wipes it clean and begins again. No one buys them, no one needs to. The act itself is the point. In a dark corner of the cellar, an old woman sings, just a hum. A tune with no words, the same one every morning. She does not know why. It came to her in a dream, she thinks. Or maybe it was a song her mother once sang when she was ill. Now it is a prayer, or perhaps a lullaby, or perhaps just something to remind her that she is still here. Outside, the guards patrol. They carry no strength, their swords are dull, their boots are worn. But they walk, because that is what is asked of them, because someone must be seen, someone must watch the wall, even if nothing stirs beyond it, even if the enemy is no longer needed for fear to remain. A young woman tends to the fire in the chapel. She blows gently into the embers, coaxing them back to life. She places twigs with precision, as if arranging a shrine. When the fire catches, she cups her hands around the flame and closes her eyes. She says nothing, but something within her settles. Just a little. Midday comes and passes without notice. The sun is hidden. The sky remains the same dull grey. No clock chimes, no bell tolls, and yet those within the walls seem to know. Some pause in their tasks, some sitting, some rest. In one home, a man carves a flute from a piece of bone. It is not musical. The tone is shrill, but it carries. He plays it only once each evening, a single note, held as long as his breath allows. Some say it is a call to the dead. Others say it is to mark another day past. The man himself offers no explanation. He plays the note, then returns to silence. Children gather stones and place them in a circle. No one taught them to do this. No one told them to stop. The circle grows each day, one rock at a time. A ritual of unknown meaning, perhaps an offering, perhaps a boundary, perhaps a game. No one interrupts. It is enough that it continues. A woman prepares a bath for her mother, just a cloth and a bowl of lukewarm water. She wipes the older woman's face, her hands, her feet. She hums a tune as she works. The mother does not speak. but her eyes remain open, following the motion of the cloth. A man cuts his hair, not out of vanity, but necessity. He does it slowly with a knife too dull for the task. Each lock dropped into a bowl. When he is finished, he burns the hair in a clay dish. He watches it curl and vanish into smoke. His expression never changes. In the chapel, the priest kneels, no words, just kneeling. Beside him, a girl lights 3 candles, one for the dead, one for the living, one for what lies between. The wax drips slowly. The flame flickers. She does not pray, she only watches. And as night approaches, the silence deepens. But it is not the silence of despair, not tonight. It is something else. A stillness earned, a breath held, not in fear, but in reverence. Because even now, even in ruin, something stirs beneath the surface. Not hope, not yet, but endurance. The faint pulse of a people who will not let the final ember die without giving it their last breath. A boy writes in the dirt with a stick, tomorrow. No one sees him do it. He wipes it away before he leaves. Some stories end with fire, with the crash of iron gates, the roar of battle, the shouts of victory or surrender. This is not that kind of story. The siege does not end with a trumpet call. There is no flag raised over broken stone, no sudden salvation, no storm of swords or ring of steel. It ends instead like it began, with stillness, with breath, with the quiet sound of footsteps where none had been before. One morning, the guards at the southern wall see movement in the trees. They do not reach for their weapons. They no longer have the strength. They only watch. The movement fades. No one speaks. Later that day, the wind shifts. The smoke is thinner. The sky, pale though it remains, no longer carries the scent of fire. For the first time in weeks, a bird is seen flying low across the rooftops. It lands on the steeple of the chapel and remains there, preening. That evening, the gate is not opened, but the steward speaks. He says the scouts report no encampments within sight, that the fires beyond the hills have gone out, that those who had once surrounded the town have moved on or vanished. He does not promise safety. He does not promise peace. He only says, "We have lasted." And that is enough. Inside the walls, no one cheers. There is no strength for it, no energy to celebrate. But something shifts. Shoulders straighten, eyes lift. Someone begins sweeping the chapel steps. Someone else pulls down the tattered banner above the market square. A child begins humming again, quietly, without knowing why. Survival does not feel like triumph. It feels like dust beneath the fingernails, like bones grown too visible, like a soul rubbed raw from waiting. But it is survival, and that, in its own quiet way, is everything. The town is not the same. It never will be. Its people are fewer. Some homes will never reopen. Some names will never be spoken again. The graveyards are full. The pantries are empty. The scars, seen and unseen, will linger far beyond this season. But the town is still here. The walls still stand. The chapel bell still hangs, silent for now. The well still gives water. The sun still rises, thin and reluctant. And the people, weary though they are, remain. Some begin planting again. A few turn the soil in garden beds that were once mass graves. They do it without ceremony, hands in earth, backs bent, seeds dropped one by one. Some begin mending clothes, patching holes in garments worn thin by months of use. Others scrub pots, sweep hearths, clear ash from corners, not to restore, not to forget, but because it must be done. Order returns slowly, not because anyone demands it, but because it is needed. The children return to the streets first, carefully, watching. They do not run yet. They step softly, as if the ground might shatter beneath them. But they are outside again. That is enough. One paints with soot and water on the chapel wall. Not prayers, but pictures. A flower, a bird, a house. The same images that once filled their dreams. No one stops her. A guard watches from the steps and says nothing. A woman writes letters to no one. She writes them by candlelight on scraps of cloth and paper, hides them in cracks in the wall, under floorboards, behind the altar. They are not messages, they are memories. Names, dates, fragments of thought. If someone finds them, they will not understand. But that doesn't matter. Writing them helps her breathe. A man carves names into the bench outside his home. Names of his family, his friends, those who were here and those who are not. He carves slowly, each letter a ritual. He says nothing as he works. But when he finishes a name, he touches it once, gently, and begins the next. There are no historians here, no scribes, no chroniclers to tell what this town endured. When the siege ends, truly ends, no armies arrive. No noble lords ride through the gates. No one sings songs of this place. History will forget it. It will forget the woman who traded her last apple for a bowl of broth. The child who braided grass into a crown for her sister's grave. The man who sat by the wall each morning, counting birds, long after the birds were gone. The girl who drew spirals on her wall each day to mark that she had not yet died. The priest who stopped believing, but prayed anyway, because others still needed to. History does not care for the quiet, but the quiet remains. It remains in the slow rebuilding, in the hands that lift bricks, mend baskets, sew cloth, in the voices that speak again, one word at a time, across long silences, in the fire that is kindled each morning, not out of habit, but out of intention, out of life. And in that silence, in that stillness, is a strength that cannot be written into scrolls. It is the strength of the mother who kept her son alive with half a crust of bread a day, the strength of the guard who watched the empty woods even when his hands shook from hunger, the strength of the woman who buried her husband, then helped her neighbour give birth, the strength of those who sang lullabies to the dead and then woke the next morning to do it all again. These are not grand victories, but they are the victories that matter, because to survive, to endure, is not passive. It is defiance. It is the act of breathing when breath is pain, the act of staying when all reason says to flee, the act of choosing gentleness in a world that has shown only cruelty. And that is why this story matters, not because of what happened, but because of what was held on to. Kindness, ritual, memory, one another. So the gates will open eventually, the roads will clear, trade will resume, new lives will grow in the ashes of the old. But something will always remain within these walls, in the stone, in the earth, in the quiet, a knowledge passed from one survivor to the next, that in the deepest cold, the softest flame matters most. And now, as night returns, and the smoke drifts softly through the eaves, the town rests again, not in fear, not in triumph, but in peace, because the storm has passed, and still they are here.